So, all right, let's get started. So I want to thank everybody for coming. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jeff Jewell. I'm the director here at the Concord Vet Center. And this is our third annual, what we like to call the WWII Mic Night. And what it is it's an opportunity for our World War II veterans, family members, and also I was hoping the Rosies would be here. They haven't gotten here yet, but it gives them an opportunity to talk about their experiences. And so I know this day came about 2 years ago. It was our first one because Chuck Kohler came to me like a week before and said, I want to do this next week. And he said, they told me over at the VA I was crazy. And so all I said to him was, you're a Pearl Harbor survivor? What do you want? Well, I want to have a place to have this. I want to have some food and drinks. And I said, no problem. And he couldn't believe it. And we put it together in like I think it was less than a couple weeks. We put the whole thing together, and it was really successful. So thank you, Chuck, because it's been pretty amazing the last couple of years listening to our World War II veterans talk about their experiences. And so I want to introduce Jerry Whiting. Jerry last year was the moderator, and he did a great job. And so he might tell you a little story about that. Jerry is an accomplished author. He also is a moderator and arranges for guest speakers for the Thursday lunch bunch, which is the third Thursday at Denny's, where a lot of the World War II veterans, other veterans and family members meet for lunch. They've been doing that for many, many, many years. So without further ado, I want to introduce Jerry, and then we'll probably call up a couple of folks, and Jerry will interview them. And Slavo, would you like to come up first here in a couple minutes? Okay, all right.
It's nice to see everybody here tonight. I told Jeff that I was going to have to take a couple cheap shots at him at the very beginning because last year he invited me here, and he said, hey, we're having this little get-together and there's free food, and he knew that would get me. So I came, and he said I could use a little help. Well, I said, well, sure, I'm glad to help you. Well, I thought I was going to set up chairs. So when I got here, Jeff said, yeah, I want you to meet somebody, and he introduced me to the guy that was running the camera. And he goes, Jerry's our moderator. And I guess it worked out okay. But he did it differently this year. He told me ahead of time, he said, would you be interested in being the moderator again? And I said, I certainly would, because it's such a special thing. And it's nice to be in a room where you don't have to explain things about service and dedication. It's just automatic, with this group here. And that's a really special thing. It's not everywhere, I'll tell you. I've written 6 books, and I do quite a bit of public speaking across the country when I go on a book signing tour, and you don't always have this kind of an audience, so it's really special to know that it's all support. But as I was driving over here today, I thought about my dad. My dad was a World War II vet. He was an airman, flew combat on a B-24 bomber over Europe, and survived without many scratches, and was always the most positive guy in the world, and such an influence on me, not by telling me things, but by the way he led his life. And I know that's the way with our World War II vets here tonight too, that my dad didn't talk a lot about it, and I hear that all the time from my generation. Well, geez, I wish he would have talked to me before he passed. I wish he would have told me more about what he did, and I'm trying to put it together now, and I can't. So it's nice that we have people here who are willing to talk about it, so that the stories don't get lost. And I remember one of my last conversations with my dad. My book was nearly finished, and the first book was about him. It's called "I'm Off to War, Mother, But I'll Be Back," and it was about, he really opened up because he knew that he was dying. And so he had really opened up, and it was a special time for both of us. When I go out and interview him, every week he and I go to breakfast together. Nobody was allowed to go with us. It was kind of a son to father, man to man thing. And it was a real special time. And after most of the interviews had been finished, we were having breakfast one morning, and I said, Dad, didn't you know that, you knew Joe Foss, didn't you? And I don't know, I know that our former Marines know who Joe Foss is because he received the Medal of Honor in World War II. He later became the governor of South Dakota, and he was a real stand-up guy. I mean, to hear the stories about him even today, he didn't back down from anybody or anything. And so I said, Dad, you knew Joe? Yeah. Do you know him well? Nah, not really. How often did you see him? Well, for about 3 years there every day. We'd have coffee together probably 4 or 5 times a week. Really? In a group? Well, sometimes somebody would be with us, but most of the time it was just he and I sitting there having coffee. And I said, did you ever talk about flying? And he goes, no, we never did. I said, here this guy, was a major ace that shot down 26 Japanese planes at Guadalcanal, and it never came up? And he goes, no, never came up. I said, so you never told him that you were in the war? He goes, everybody was in the war. He said, we were a dime a dozen. He said, it was hard to find somebody that hadn't served in some capacity that was able-bodied, because we all served. So he said there wasn't really much to talk about. I said, but you both flew. And he goes, yeah. I said, so you never talked about the war? And he said, no, it never came up. I said, really, this is like 4 years after World War II ended. It was a major part of your life. He goes, yeah, I'll say it was. And you never talked about it? And he said, no, we never talked about it. Never came up. I said, are you sure? It isn't just your memory? He goes, no, it never came up. I said, why do you think it never came up? And he said, I know why it never came up. He said, we'd already done that. We had mouths to feed, bills to pay, but we'd already done that. And I thought, what a positive way, a simple way to look at it for him in those years was to, it's like we already saved the world. We're not going to sit around talking about it. We've got other things to do in our lives now. And I think that that's part of what makes this generation so special too, is that it didn't end with their experiences in World War II that you're going to hear about tonight, that they went on to lead really full and rich lives, a few bumps along the way like everybody has, but they've gone on to lead really full and rich lives, and they continue to serve. They're here today. They're here tonight. Still willing to talk to us about that so that we can all learn from it a little bit. So I just wanted to share that little tidbit about you with you about my dad, because he was a real special guy. And I think that for our first speaker, I'm going to ask if Slavo will come up here. Okay. Come on up. Thank you. Come on up here. Jerry. I'm Jerry. Slavo ran his own construction business, I hear. So, like I said, he has gone on to lead a real full and successful life. And Slavo, I hear, was a Marine Raider. Okay, and I know there were very few of those guys. And I know that fewer of them came home. So, I'm very just intrigued to hear about how that happened to you. How did you end up being a Marine, and how did you end up being a Marine Raider, and how did you end up being in that unit? So, would you mind just?
Thanks, Jeff, for asking me here, and thanks, Jerry. How you got here in World War II is you were young, patriotic, you loved your country, and we all joined. And there was no big deal. besides that, it's not nice to talk about because you lost a lot of them. And when I was in the Raiders, I lost a lot of great friends, and it's nothing to really talk about. It brings back a lot of bad memories, and who cares? I hope that today, the young people of today realize how lucky they are to live in this country. And all of us are here that we know about how great it is to be an American in the United States of California. Yeah. So I don't really have a lot to talk about because I don't want to talk about the past in reflection that they already gave their lives 18, 19 years old, and they paid the price for all of us. So I want to thank Jeff and everybody here for everything, and God bless you all.
Could you tell us a little bit about your training? I think we'd all be interested in just knowing a little bit about that.
Carlson was in China working on guerrilla warfare. And in 1941, we were in bad shape, and President Roosevelt called on him. He was in the Army at that time. Asked him if it's possible that we could have some kind of offense to raise the morale of the American public. And he said, sure. And we can't do much because we were in bad shape at that time. But he interviewed 7,000, he picked up 1,000, showed them how to fight guerrilla warfare, and he invaded Macon Island with one battalion, and the rest of us went to Midway. And as you know, Macon Island was the first offense of the American forces, and Roosevelt thanked him for that, and he was one of the greatest men I ever met, and that's how it all happened.
So, when did you get out of the military? You started in Midway, and
I got out of the war when the war was over, and I was in and out of the hospital and all that stuff, but when the war was over, I got out. I wasn't a ranger, I was a raider. And no, I didn't do it overseas. He trained us out of Camp Pendleton. We learned he picked 1,000, and we went through guerrilla warfare. And then we went to Pearl Harbor, and from there he had a division, which is 1,000. He took one company and went to Macon, and the rest of us went to Midway. That's how it all happened.
How many islands were the Raiders involved in?
We were involved in Guadalcanal, Bougainville, the Solomon Islands in general, Guam, Okinawa, and not Iwo Jima. So we went up and down, and we were out and in, and a lot of us didn't make it all the way. We had to go in the hospital and here and this and that. But anyhow.
Were diseases a problem where you were?
I had malaria and jaundice and all that stuff.
Was that fairly typical of all you guys then, that if you're there, you're going to get that stuff?
Oh, yeah, we didn't. You were young, 18. I mean, you do anything.
Yeah.
Nothing could defeat you.
I think everybody should give Slavo a hand here because I know that he turned down a Purple Heart with 2 or 3 other Marines, right? 3 other Marines, because he said at the time, what did you say?
They gave their lives and they want to give us the same award and we're still around.
So he turned down a Purple Heart because it was the right thing to do. So let's give this guy a hand. Hoorah!
I'm wondering if